concerning the matter of the book of Revelation and belief in the Bible in general. Now, when I first read the Bible, when I came to the end, I came to the book of Revelation, and I assumed it was making some kind of revelatory statements about my life, about the world, about our lives, about the lives of believers. And being the end of the Bible, when the closing comments stated that anybody who changed any word or added to any word of the book, all the curses in the book would come upon them, I assumed that the book referred to the entire Bible. Then gradually, as I studied and spoke with other people, I noticed that there were many different interpretations of all this, and many people believe that the book refers simply to the book of Revelation, and they use that claim to justify the addition of apocryphal books to the 66 books in our Bible, which would otherwise be disallowed if the final injunction in Revelation refers, of course, to the whole Bible. And then looking more deeply, or at other aspects, shall we say, the interpretation of Revelation, the church that I attended, where I did my first Bible study, was dispensational in its outlook, and the preacher in that church and the people that went there were awaiting the rapture and used to remark upon it regularly every Sunday. I gradually became unconvinced of that interpretation, that the world was going to spiral into some kind of ultimate Armageddon, with culminating in the return of Jesus Christ. I think there are many verses of the Bible that seem to jar with that description, and also it's very discouraging. I found my walk with faith having really become quite disheartened. There seemed to be no reason for optimism whatsoever. And I encountered the post-millennial view. I don't know whether it's different from the preterist view, but the idea that the book of Revelation was written about things that had already occurred, namely the destruction of Jerusalem. And that was greatly encouraging to me. And so I abandoned my despondency about the end of the world being, about to occur in the next few months. At one time, it did seem in 2022 or 2020, things were very dire. I'm sure everybody remembers. And I gradually abandoned that, and I adopted a far more optimistic view, and I embraced the ideas of the post-millennial thinking, and the Bible seemed to confirm them in many, many places. And of course, the problem is that if looking at when the book of Revelation was written, it seems that there's a general consensus that it was written in about the year 95 AD, while Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD. So that sort of jars with the post-millennial view. People who hold the post-millennial view, of course, will claim that it was written earlier than scholars seem to have agreed so far. And then latterly looking into the authorship, it's in the old authorized version I have, it's called The Revelation of St. John the Divine, and I find that that's in many of the Bibles I have. But in my favorite Bible, which is the the Thomas Nelson Bible, a very straightforward, authorized version. Of course, when I say a version of the Bible, I'm always speaking of the authorized version. I should say edition. Um, the Book of Revelation is entitled "The Revelation of Jesus Christ." There's no mention of St. John, and that's quite interesting to me. And so I started looking into who is the St. John mentioned, and again, there's disagreement about this. Of course, many people believe it's St. John the Apostle, who wrote the Gospel of John, and presumably the Epistles of John. But there are also beliefs that it was that it's John of Patmos, a different person, or possibly some claim that it's another John called John the Presbyter, and I don't really know who that is. But so there were, the authorship there is disputed. But going back to my original, all these things seem to undermine my faith, because when I read the Bible, I had a conviction, and it was not a human conviction. It was greater than that it was the Word of God. And so, Revelation, the Apocalypse, are the words of God. And when it was written and how it was written, I mean, no man wrote that book, in my estimation. There's no way that anybody could write such a phenomenal vision. This was a revelation of Jesus Christ. This was given. How the words were put down, how they came to be on paper, I cannot say, but it's not, to me, the work of some mystic on the Isle of Patmos. There's something far deeper about it. That would be my belief, I've actually visited Patmos. It's quite interesting. I was never a Christian in my life, and I never travelled. And the very first time that I did travel out of Britain, I went with my then girlfriend, and she knew more about the world than I did. And we went to Patmos, and we stayed on Patmos for several weeks. This is back in the 1980s, I think it would have been. No, 1970s rather. Sleeping on the beaches, and it was just beautiful, unspoiled. I didn't know anything about the Book of Revelation. I knew there was a monastery in Patmos, but I never questioned, such is my dullness of mind, I never looked into why there should be or why there shouldn't be. The matter didn't interest me. And it was only 50 years later that I discovered the significance of the island, that beautiful island, which I'm sure now has been covered with hotels and tourism and all this sort of nonsense that we come to expect in the modern world. But at the time, this was the very early days, and I was one of the first hippies, my girlfriend and I, travelling on the magic bus to Athens and exploring Greece. It was a wonderful, wonderful holiday. So, I can't, I'm not going to say what or how or anything about the Book of Revelation. It's far too much for me. But I will say that, I believe the Bible. And so I don't really care for these meanders back and forth. I don't think the answer can be found. Another question that came to my mind is why is Revelation the last book in the Bible? If it's also arbitrary, as it were, I don't think it was the last book to be written chronologically. Why would it have been put at the end of the Bible? Was there some sinister, secret society hand trying to convince all believers that their faith was doomed by placing that vision at the very end of the Bible. That doesn't seem to be very likely to me, but of course, you might think that. The argument could be made. But I'm just going to go with the default position as a believer in the authorized version. The last book in the Bible is Revelation, so it must have end time significance. It must have. Otherwise, it wouldn't be at the end of the Bible. Now, I would go more with the revelation of Jesus Christ. I don't know what it means. I can't, claim to have any knowledge of that. I've looked into it, of course, and I shall continue to read it, and maybe gradually things will become clear to me. But I don't think anybody really knows. I think we can only stand in wonder and awe at that book, like in, the rest of the Bible, really. To me, it comes down to a matter of faith. And I am quite dogged in my faith, having come to faith, at the age of 60 years of age, really. I'm not going to start weakening it by following these paths which never really seem to go anywhere. Questioning, well, was this and was that? I take it as true and literal, and I take the final words of Revelation to refer to the whole Bible, because what we've seen is people altering the Bible and removing and adding, and that makes complete sense. And of course, the warning is also repeated in other parts of the Bible, so it's not just Revelation. I do not think that the book of Enoch or any other apocryphal book. I was listening to a fellow who was trying to claim that the book of Mary Magdalene, was part of the Bible, and reading from it and making some astonishing statements. These are the Gnostics, and they are just there to mislead us. I think we have to be very careful. For me, I start at Genesis chapter 1. And I end at Revelation 22, I think is the final chapter. That's how I see it. I mean, maybe it's simple, maybe it's simplistic, but I'm sticking with that. God bless everybody.